Right Pack Radio, a podcast produced by Winding Trails Media for writers by writers.
Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack.
Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host and producer, David Allen Lucas, president of St. Louis Writers Guild, president of Winding Trails Media, and man who's just going completely crazy. By now, I should have an online course on writing the fight scene out there. I hopefully will have my website done by now if I've been able to get it pulled away from the vendor that is currently hosting it. Long story short. And as well as hopefully we'll have 2 books out by the end of August or at least Labor Day. I'm working on. One is a military sci-fi. One is military sci-fi / mystery. And the other one is about knife fighting and self-defense. So, yes, all those subjects are not anywhere near related. And also with us today is my lovely co-host.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Kayembe. I write paranormal romance under the pen name Second and Vita. I'm on Twitter at MKKayembe, and my short story, You Will Always Have Family, a triptych, is coming out in March in Nightmare Magazine.
Yay!
Okay, and Jen?
My name is Jen. I'm Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. My premiere novel, my self-published novel, Threadcaster, comes out March 25th. So keep an eye out for that. You can follow Threadcaster on Facebook and on the internet at threadcaster.com to see when the soft launch date starts. There's going to be a promotion for people who are out of town on soft launch date. If you send me proof that you bought it the day it comes out, I'm going to send you a prize.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Prizes.
Nice.
Keep an eye out. I wish I could tell you exactly what the date is, but that's all up to Amazon now, isn't it?
Kaboom. Okay.
I'm Melanie Lucas, author of nonfiction, science fiction, and sci-fi.
Fedora Amos. I write Victorian whodunits like Jack the Ripper in St. Louis and my new one, which is Mayhem at Buffalo Bill's Wild West. And I am president of Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime.
I am George Soroy. I write science fiction for the young adult reader. My sci-fi YA novel, Excelsior, and its sequel, Ever Upward, Part 2 of the Excelsior Journey, will be out May and June through Aloris Publishing. And the 5-part serial from Parts Unknown will be coming out at a time to be determined. I am also the vice president of the Missouri Writers Guild, and I look forward to seeing you at the Holiday Inn Executive Center in Columbia, Missouri, for our annual conference, May 5th through the 7th.
And then after you're done with that conference, come to the St. Louis Writers Guild Gateway Con here in St. Louis. It will be at the Renaissance Hotel, June 16th, 17th, and 18th. It is a writers' convention and writers' conference and a readers' convention. Also with us today is calling in remotely.
Yes, Brad R. Cook, author of fine works for all ages. No, I am a steampunk author. Basically, I write historical fantasy. I write sci-fi and other fun stuff. You can get the Iron Chronicles in paperback and ebook. Do check it out, but also be on the lookout for my short stories. You can find them all on Amazon or at bradrcook.com.
And also with us today,
Chanel Etienne. I write sci-fi and fantasy.
Excellent. And today we're going to talk about 2 things. We're going to celebrate author Alex Haley, who will talk about his career. If you don't know who he is, I'm going to sit here and be in shock. But we're going to talk about him, some of the things he faced, where he got his starts at. But I'm also going to talk about one of the things that most writers have the biggest difficulty with, and that is working full-time with the bill pay job and yet still trying to get your writing done and meeting all your deadlines or at least break in. So let's go with Alex Haley for a moment. Alex Haley, author of, he started his journalism career while he was in and deployed with U.S. Coast Guard. He wrote the biography or autobiography with Malcolm X on Malcolm X. He also is known especially for his work, his novel called Roots, which is Roots, an American Family, which explored a family in slavery during the early parts of the American nation. Basically, I believe it occurred right before and then into Civil War, but I may be getting that with the TV show mixed up. So
the miniseries is very famous, and most of
Yes.
our listeners are probably familiar with it through the miniseries.
right.
Sure.
Well, there's been 2 now miniseries.
Oh, that's true, yes.
Yeah.
Roots, the saga of an American family.
Thank you. And the first miniseries has, I know, Right Pack Radio's favorite engineer, former navigator, and that is LeVar Burton, a.k.a. Geordie LaForge from Star Trek Next Gen.
We love
And
him
the
from
host of
that,
Reading Rainbow.
but he's
Yes.
also the host of Reading Rainbow. And
Either
a good
way.
Twitter account to follow.
Okay. So just talking about them, and then I do want to talk about writing full-time and working full-time and another job. I can start off this very easily. I know, in fact, recently I even heard this advice yet again, and I bit my tongue because I respect the guy who said it, and for the most part, it's generally true. You can find time to write no matter what you're doing. Personally,
Not find it, make it.
Make it.
You have to make it.
You gotta make
if you're
it.
gonna do it.
Personally, I found that to be impossible, and I will explain. I was working full-time, but more hours than normal full-time. In fact, my holiday seasons would be Martin Luther King Day, then Thanksgiving. I would be working 7 days a week, usually for most of that time period. If I was sick, I was working. If I was on vacation, I was working. There were times in which those months would be 7 in the morning till roughly 1 in the morning, go to sleep, wake up, repeat. 7 days a week. And people can't wonder why I was happy when my job finally changed after 10 plus years doing that. Then I was also taking care of an elderly parent on top of that, which made that even more fun. So there's times in which sometimes that advice is impossible to follow, no matter how hard you try. And I can probably hear some of our listeners go, but you could have done it. You don't get lunch hours on top of that. Yeah, it really does make it difficult, people. I'll admit that. But what are some of the ways in which those around the table who are working full-time and still write, what are some of the ways you manage to be able to get this in, or what are some of your misadventures in doing so? George.
I can say that there have been a couple of occasions in my professional career, you can say, where I've been between jobs. There was one time in 2009 when I lost my job working at Hadassah, and there was about 6 months before I started working at Top of the Rock, where I basically did a complete about face and was doing something completely different from what I was doing before. I can say that I accomplished quite a decent amount of writing during that time, but I also found out that when I was writing, during those times when I was out of work, I was feeling guilty that I wasn't job hunting.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, and so it basically like what happened with Top of the Rock is that my journey for that particular job started and finished in the same week. I applied, I wound up getting interviews, and then all of a sudden I was offered the job, and all of a sudden, boom, I was back in the rat race, you can say. But because of that, there are times when I was looking forward to that period of time where I was just like, yay, I have this spare time and everything now. All of a sudden I can go ahead and dive in. But when I would, it just wouldn't come to me as easily as I thought it would. It seemed like when I was working, that's when everything really starts to happen with myself, with my, that's my own personal experience with my writing. It seems like whenever I should be working, or if I should be, if I have like, some downtime or anything, I can focus on, putting a little bit of writing here, a little bit of writing there, just putting down some notes, and then putting those notes into action when I get home from work. It's really just what it comes down to. It's time management. Like that's something that I, like personally have my own issues with, but I found that when I can actually commit to doing it, it becomes a little bit easier. Like it's one of those things where just like the more experience you try with it, the more the easier things are going to get, if that makes any sense at all.
So, I don't know. I kind of want to throw a wrench in this whole thing.
Okay.
Because I have worked full time and not gotten a lot of writing done. Granted, I also had carpal tunnel more severely than I realized, so I wasn't wanting to write because I wasn't wanting to be in pain. But at the same time, I didn't get as much writing done working as I wanted, because the way that I function best as a writer is having chunks of 3 to 4 hours at a time when I can write. And when you're working 8 hours a day, when you need 8 hours of sleep, and when you also have to do adulting and commuting and make sure you eat, which is annoying because I have to keep doing it, but it's still something that needs to be done, that doesn't leave enough time to be the kind of writer that I work best as a writer being. So I found that like writing on weekends was something I had to do. Because I couldn't write very well during the week, except like short little pieces and things that I didn't care about as much.
Right.
I get plotting done, but not the actual writing that made me so happy.
Or productive, for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where I've talked about a little while ago, my issue was the work issue and then taking care of the elderly parent. It was taking care of the elderly parent, especially when she had a certain condition, which is called C. diff, which is, for those who don't know this, it's something I pray that none of you ever get. It's really bad. The bacteria in your bacteria in your colon is trapped by good bacteria in your digestive tract. When you've taken too many antibiotics, that kills off good bacteria and releases, let's just say, unleash the hounds, and causes massive diarrhea, uncontrolled for months, and will kill elderly people. And it's not just normal diarrhea, it really burns and so forth. I'm going to stop it there because I don't want to get anybody disgusted. But what really killed my discipline, if you will, was she came home. That's my mother who I was taking care of. Came home from a skilled nursing facility right before Easter. Not right before Easter, right before Halloween. Before this, I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to write because there's nobody up to bother me. Well, with her having C. diff, and she had it from that June, and still had it when she came home, and would continue to have it until Easter the following year. When she had it and I was taking care of her, I was literally getting maybe half an hour sleep at a time. Because it was day and night. So that broke the discipline. Right now, it hasn't been until just over the last, what do you say, month? Or no, yeah, we'll say the month, considering the time frame we were doing. I'm turning to Melanie and asking her that this discipline has finally been coming back. Go ahead. Okay, and then I've got you next, Brad.
I want to point out that I've heard a lot of stories about moms who are stay-at-home moms or who have work but then come home and have to do all the family caring tasks as if that weren't another job. That a lot of times you have to find like pockets of 30 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes to write. And like that always seemed very hard to me because I can do that, but not with a novel. Like I've written like poems on 15-minute breaks at work. I do that all the time. It is a lot of fun, but they're not, the novel that I'm working on or the short story that I'm revising. They're not things that it doesn't allow enough time for me to be immersed. And that's something that I find difficult to deal with. So how do you deal with things like that as a writer when you've got a longer project, but all you have are short snatches of time to work on it?
Brad, have you got an answer to that? If not, maybe Fedora?
I might have a bit.
Go for it.
Well, I don't have that problem, thank heavens. However, once upon a time, there were things I wanted to do when I was in college. I wanted to be in shows. I wanted to be in the theater. However, if any of the rest of you have been there, you know that it's rehearsal every night for several hours. It's a block of time. You have to be there, and you have to be doing something most of the time. If you have a big part, pretty much all the time. But that's also the time that you've got to do all of your homework and to do everything else. The only way that I could make that work, to get that block of time, which is what you're seeking, is to absolutely use every spare minute for the rest of the day. I was taking American History Honors at the time and had 50 pages in the tome per session to read, plus an extra book every week, and all the rest of my schedule also. Believe me, I had my head in the book all the time. And it did not matter. When I was walking from class to class, I used those minutes. I had to if I was going to get that block of time later. So I say use those spare moments for things that you don't have to really engage in as much as you would for writing your novel. But those are things that that have to get done. Paying your bills, all of that kind of thing. Don't waste a minute is the suggestion.
George and then Brett.
Yeah, I definitely know what Fedora is talking about because I studied theater in college, and I remember those long rehearsal times and everything right after, during the class, during the evenings and everything, and then you have tech rehearsal the weekend before the show goes on. So that's sucking up your entire day. And I remember those times. This was back in when I was in college. It was 94 to 98 to date myself. And I remember just kind of like sitting around for sometimes hours at a time, while they were, checking lights and everything like that. If I had a laptop, that would have been awesome, but I didn't. But I did, I did have, like a notebook and everything, so I could at least put down some notes for what I was working on. But yeah, like those times I remember very, very well.
You kids today don't know how good you got it. No,
you don't.
No, yeah. So actually, Fedora, you perfectly described my high school and early college career. So, bam. That is exactly what I did. But what I was going to say is, we've been going on and on about all the things that prevent us from writing, which is numerous because everything prevents us from writing. It seems like, the world conspires against writers to prevent them from writing. But the point is that, you have to find, as Fedora was saying, those little moments, those little times. And just remember, there are several writers who've said this, if you write a little bit every day, eventually you will have a novel. And then maybe find a block of time to go through that novel because that's going to take a while. But, it's true that, just writing a little bit every day, so long as you keep good notes or wherever and keep a good mindset of where you are, it's your story. Eventually, you'll finish that book. But what I was going to say, my point to all of this, though, is that the reason why I think the article is, out there and why we're really here talking is to let everyone know that basically, as an early author, you're not going to make money. So keep the jobs that you've got until you make more money.
Right. That is a fact. You're not going to make. Sadly, writing, you don't make a lot of money. And let's take a look at how long, if you're going through traditional publishing, how long it takes you to get out there, even get your book out. Brad, you're a former acquisition editor. If I said 2 years, does that sound too far off?
Yeah, no, that's not unheard of. 2 years what they'll tell you about 2 years is 2 years used to be the industry standard. That's not as much of a thing anymore. Usually it's about a year, but it can be anywhere from a year to 18 months to, so yeah, 2 years is not unheard of.
Yeah, so during that time period, you got to be doing something to make money. Kathleen?
I was going to bring up a teacher of mine from Clarion, Ted Chang. He is a brilliant man, very unassuming. He has a book of short stories out called Stories of Your Life and Others. And it's brilliant. And he doesn't publish novel after novel after novel. He's very good at the short story and the short form. And you don't make a whole lot of money doing short stories. And he's also a slower writer. But he's really freaking good. Like, he has consistently won awards with, like, everything in that book. The thing is, though, the title story in that in that collection is Arrival. The film Arrival is his short story.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting with him and with Shelley Strebe, who kind of organizes Clarion at UC San Diego, and she was like, so are you going to retire now? And Ted gave her this baffled look, and he was like, of course not. And she was like, really? Because, like, movies would pay a lot, right? And he was like, if it's not enough to retire on, I'm not going to retire. And he was completely serious. And I was like, huh, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, like, even if I end up with something that becomes a Hollywood movie, if it's not enough to retire on, don't ever retire.
Right.
I was told there that, you know, make a lot of money while you're young, and then you can do more things when you're older as far as writing goes. But really, like, if you're not set for life, it's probably a good idea to keep your job.
Yeah, it really is. Just FYI, and I'm going to turn this over to Brad. If you ever talk to that teacher again, I was on a writing course for screenwriting, and they called the script for The Arrival, at least, profound. One of the most profound stories. So, just sharing that. Go ahead, Brad.
Yes. I was going to say that I don't want to turn any of our listeners off to the fact that they should stop writing because it's a penniless, journey. There are tons of ways to make money as writers.
That's right.
And not just as novel writers. You can write for freelancing, you can write for different types of organizations and all that kind of fun stuff, companies and, weird other little blogs and everything. But the point is that as a novelist, you can even make money. After about 10,000 copies of your book, you're going to be making what you would consider a salary, probably-ish. Probably going to take more than that. It's probably going to take more than that, but you're in the veins of what in some countries would be called a salary. You just have to get to that level of selling that number of books, and it becomes that kind of a thing. It becomes, how many books can you get out to people? How many things can you share? What else can you share? What else do you have that you can, sell? So this is why you see authors doing all kinds of things. One of my favorite authors, actually, screw that. Jumping back to Van Allen Plexico, who just spoke at St. Louis Writers Guild. He had a card game for one of his book sets. So, you're going to find a ton of interesting ways to make money as a writer is basically where I'm going. But it is out there. And then if you're really lucky and you're truly blessed, the J.K. Rowling money will come showering down on you.
That would be nice.
I need to throw in real fast while we're talking about ways for authors to make money that isn't necessarily selling 10,000 copies of your book. We need to put in fundsforwriters.com.
Yes.
Research those opportunities. There are grants to apply for. There are contests to enter, but also finding places that are taking and paying for articles that you write, poetry and short stories that you write. There are places that will pay you for those things, and Funds for Writers is a great place to find those places. So there you go.
Yep. George, and then, I've got a tie-in with Alex Haley real fast. Go for it. Alex Haley, I mentioned in his life, he was a part of the Coast Guard. Actually, he eventually got to the rank of Chief Petty Officer. He fought in 2 wars, World War II and Korea. He taught himself how to write stories once he was in the Coast Guard. So before he ever got into his literary career, he started learning how to write while in the service. And if during wartime, guys, you never know when you're going to sleep or not. Seriously. But Alex was smart. He started making money pretty much right away. You know how he did it? While he was learning the craft? You talk about finding another way to make money writing. Once it was during his service in the Pacific Theater of Operations that Haley taught himself the craft of writing stories. During his enlistment, other sailors often paid him to write love letters to their girlfriends.
He was good at it.
He said the greatest enemy he had and his crew during their long voyages was not the Japanese forces, but rather boredom.
Mm.
So there you go. So there are ways to make money writing, even if it's just starting off.
Hey, if there's one thing that writers have proven, it's that going to war is good inspiration. I know it sucks, but apparently you're going to write a really good novel coming out of it.
Apparently Ernest Hemingway did that, so did Alex Haley.
So when basically like when it comes to working a full-time job and like really just like finding the time and everything to write is always that constant struggle.
Yeah.
Just to get back to what one of our modern day peers, Hugh Howey, he was writing Wool during the time when he was stocking books at Barnes and Noble, and he was writing in the morning, at night, and during his lunch break.
Right.
So he was really just kind of like finding that time to write as much as possible. I found out that one of the things that worked out for me, especially for like the past couple of books I've been working on, is if I know that I'm behind on things, and I will basically make sure that I have a specific night set apart. It's more often a Friday so that I can recoup on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I will basically just, like inform my wife, I am pulling an all-nighter. I am, I'm getting the coffee ready right now. It's about 10 o'clock and everything. I have to finish this. And that's how I finished finally From Parts Unknown back in 2015. That was how I reached the brink of finishing Ever Upward last year. Was basically just like knowing that I have this chunk of time that I can go ahead and dedicate to working on something. And I took it and I jumped right in. It turns out that writing at night when everyone is asleep, that winds up being my best time to write. That just so happens to work out that way. Mm-hmm. And another big thing that I really want to just kind of, give as advice to other writers that are out there, if you are working like a full-time job that offers this, keep track of your PTO, because you likely be using less of it than you think. Mm-hmm. Take a look and see what you have left and everything. These are your hours. Mm-hmm. They give them to you. Take them and dedicate those days to chopping out, like 6 to 8 hours worth of writing. You never know how much you're going to get done during that time.
Most certainly. One thing that I'm going to tie in real fast. One thing I noticed that when I had PTO, I had difficulty with was shutting off the work environment and kicking in that writing. So I had to have at least a week of PTO and take that off. Now, honestly, part of that was because at any moment my phone would ring and say, I need you right now. We've got an issue with the federal government dealing with healthcare.
Could you just please define PTO for the listeners?
Personal time off.
Paid time off.
Paid time
off.
Paid time off, yeah.
So we had that. So I did have that. My PTO was going to be interrupted, but I found I needed that break to do it. When I was still disciplined before now has come back, I would take that time that you're talking about and I would jealously guard it. Worse than Smaug with all the gold and the Hobbit. I would be guarding that with everything. There was no way I was going to let anybody add to it. And you've got to be that way. You've got to protect it because that precious time is extremely precious. Be able to let your wheels go and let yourself write. Because I found during when I was doing that, I was pulling 3,000 to 6,000 words a day trying to get it done and fast as I could. Of course, I never did do a full novel in a week. That's impossible. But
no, there are people at Nano who do incredible things.
Okay, I have not been able to get there. I want to.
Mm-hmm. I'm a slow.
These people have a superpower.
Yes. And speaking of that, there's a book out there, it's out of print, called The Secrets of the Best-Selling Author or Best-Selling Writer. I'm looking for my copy, which is out of reach. I see it now. but it was The Secrets of Earl Stanley Gardner, who wrote Perry Mason. And he constantly talked about his mind being like a horse, and that he would have to tie it up to a hitching post to make sure he focused on the time he wrote. He was a practicing attorney while he was putting out all these books, and I mean a huge chunk. Also, too, he would say, I'm paraphrasing him, but he would say basically our standard routine. You have to be in bed by X, have to be up by Y. You've got to have lunch by whatever time, and that was an enemy. He would say, eat when you were hungry only, sleep when you were tired only, and just work the rest of the time. Not saying that was the healthiest way of doing it, but...
As long as you're always tired.
It's like if I said that I was tired, I wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
Well, but actually, he lived on very little sleep.
Because you're 5 years old and don't want to go to bed.
Yes. He lived on very, very, very little sleep. And it's possible to do. So.
I could kill myself on very little sleep. Hold it behind the wheel of the car and go, Kathleen.
So, but when you are
Mess.
finally breaking in, and I'm looking more at any of you guys who have got books traditionally published, when you're finally breaking in, what do you find to be your hardest struggle in your writing career with work? Go ahead.
For me, it's a struggle, but it's also something that being traditionally published actually solves.
Uh-huh.
For me, the fact that my traditional publisher, both my previous one, Rocking Horse Publishing, and my current one, Aloris Publishing, they're giving me deadlines. Those are the most beautiful things in the world, and not just because of the sound they make as they whoosh by. They're beautiful things because they keep me focused on what I'm doing. The fact that, like From Parts Unknown, that's going to be self-published by myself, that doesn't have a set deadline right now. So because of that, that's kind of on the back burner and just focusing on, making sure the other books are good to go.
Jen and then Kathleen?
Well, you weren't.
Or Kathleen first?
Okay.
Whichever one.
I've mentioned in previous episodes, so I won't go at great length, but Threadcaster has been 11 years in the process.
Right.
Like 2017 is 11 years since the piece of concept art that started Threadcaster that I have dated on DeviantArt. But it's been a long process of writing it when I got to writing it, and sometimes I was writing it just at write-ins, either just at our Thursday get-together when we were doing our regular Write Pack Thursdays thing, or just when I was meeting up with another writer like Kathleen or Catherine or one of these other people that I like to meet up with. That was the only time I would write because that was the time I could make for it. When last year I decided that I wanted to self-publish the thing, then I decided to take a hit on my freelance business and give the time that I would give another client to my novel, with the hope that they would, the novel would then pay for itself, at least for the point of the last year that I gave it. We'll see. It might take its entire lifetime to make back that kind of time I put in. That's not even counting the 11 years of, the 10 years I spent working on it. It's just the years I spent editing it and preparing it and getting ready to go. But if I hadn't taken that time, if I hadn't given myself the permission to say, like George mentioned, don't be guilty about working on your thing right now. That's what you're supposed to be doing right now. This is the thing. And as a freelance person, I don't have office hours.
Yeah.
I don't have weekends. I do it when I can do it, and I wedge it in around all of my other things I need to do. Then it wouldn't be done right now. I'm panicking because I have a deadline that I've missed on Threadcaster, and who's going to punish me for missing the Threadcaster deadline? Like, I don't have a boss telling me that it's wrong except for me.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of 2 cents on the subject, is that not everybody has a day where they have a lunch break and they have an app after office hours or whatever. If you're working all the time at your work or on your own, then you have to sit down and say, is this part of my business? Is this a business venture? And do I need to make it a priority over, say, going out partying or meeting up with somebody. It's like, is it time for writing? It might be time for writing. We're going to get ourselves to whatever coffee shop and do the hours that I need to do.
Yep. Kathleen and then Brad.
Something that I found and still find difficult about being published, well, I will say initially the trouble I had with being published was feeling like writing was suddenly a job. So I couldn't play around on the page anymore. Like I had to make something that someone would want to buy and pay me for. And that was really, really bad for my writing. It took me a long time to kind of get over that and to relearn how to play. Like a bunch of things happened around that same time. So there was that, there was a carpal tunnel, there was a move, it was just a mess. So my writing took a huge hit because of that. And it took me a while to realize, no, it's okay if writing never pays the bills. That doesn't make it any more or less legitimate than it does. So that was the first thing that was really hard after getting published for me. The second thing that is still hard is publicity. I am not someone who likes to give out all the information about what I'm doing. I am not someone who likes to talk about whatever project I'm currently working on in like more than vague details, or, you know, I don't like telling people, oh yeah, I just did this thing, you should check it out. It just feels weird to me. I feel like I'm bragging, even though it's stating a fact and everybody does it. So that's been really hard for me, dealing with what do you do for publicity and what is acceptable and what is just rude and obnoxious and people want you to quit. And how do you balance telling people across social media platforms with, you know, being that person that won't shut up? Like, how do you do all that? How do you juggle all of that and still keep writing new things and keep sending things for submission?
That is a difficult juggling act. I'm going to go to Brad, Fedora, and then I'm going to want to come back to you for just a second.
I was going to say, that is the game, actually.
That really
we're
is.
all playing, that we're all trying to figure out, you know, how much of this can you go back and forth with. I have actually written at all times. So part of Iron Horseman, because that novel goes so far back that it actually goes back into my corporate writing days. So I have written that book both on my lunch hour. I have taken days off in a row to write and do all that kind of fun stuff. I probably shouldn't mention it, but it doesn't matter anymore. At previous jobs, when you're sitting in a mall, in a store, and you have nothing better to do and it's a dead mall, I will admit the parts of my first novel were written on the counter of the music store that I worked in. So, you know, I have written everywhere. But finding time is kind of the thing. Like right now, as a published author, and I put giant air quotes above that, you know, finding time to write, to work on what's next, to publish, to do all of these jobs is almost overwhelming in its in its own right, to kind of have to do all that work load and then also try and work other stuff and do, you know, try and get all these other avenues, whether it be St. Louis Writers Guild, whether it be freelancing work, whether it be, you know, other kinds of, you know, design work that I do. So it's just this craziness of working 1,000 jobs at once. And I think that is kind of the life of the modern writer, because when I see the authors who are bigger than I am, you know, because I follow them on Facebook and Twitter and all this kind of stuff, they're doing the exact same things. The one of my, you know, favorite authors, Tracy Hickman, is currently massively involved in a video game, a whole VR thing that he's getting, you know, and launching and doing all this crazy work with. So I think as authors, it's kind of a non-stop of dealing with everything.
Yep.
And I would certainly echo what Brad and Kathleen have both been saying, that the promotion end of things is something apparently you have to do these days. And it not only is perhaps not really in your bailiwick of things you like to do, but it's certainly a big time suck too. But even worse than that, I think, is the fact that it takes away from the creativity and imagination that you would otherwise pour into your writing. So it is not just a time suck, it's a mind suck.
Mhm.
Going back to, I want to address some of the promotional stuff, and I'm with you completely, Kathleen. I hate good promotion as well. You guys have all learned from me. I don't like to talk too much about what my current novel is, because as soon as I talk about it, it's gone. It's done. I've wasted all my energy telling you about the novel rather than writing about it. But I'm going to recommend somebody who's been on the Right Pack before, Right Pack broadcast. That's Bob Baker. He does have some great online courses and webinars about breaking out your creativity and being able to do marketing and so forth. He's also got some great books out there, including one that is called The Empowered Artist, which includes writers and so forth. I recommend going and check it out. Go ahead, Brad.
I was also going to say, one of the reasons I also think you should keep working and keep a variety of networks going is this is a great way to publicize yourself. And I don't mean like, walk up to everyone in your office and be like, hey, here's the flyer on my book. But you can if you want. But my point is that, like, in your family life, X number of people. In your friends, X number of people. In your work life, X number of people. In your social, whatever groups and stuff you do, X number of people, the clubs, the book clubs, the whatever you're involved in, X number of people. All of those numbers of people can grow and become part of your network of trying to promote yourself. So there's that aspect of it too. But one of the reasons why I say keeping your job is a professional network is huge, and everyone loves a writer. So if you're like a salesman, you're walking around trying to sell for your company, the fact that you're a writer is suddenly like something you can talk about. If you're an engineer, you're in a lab somewhere, everyone in your lab is going to want to read your book just because it's salacious and crazy. They're going to talk about you. So these become avenues you can go through. I'm actually jealous of some. One of my friends is an author, Joshua Miller. He's also a pastor, and so not only does he have everyone in his church buying his book, but they're connected, and it's all up there, in pretty sure it's Wisconsin. But the whole point is that basically, like, he has churches all across the land reading his book because it's part of the network. He's the pastor over at this other church that they're all affiliated with, so. He had literally hundreds of book sales right out the gate. And, those kinds of things are great to have. And it's a reason to keep your day job.
George? But at the same time, you want to be careful that you're not stepping over your boundaries. Right. And basically,
don't insult or don't get crazy with people.
Yeah. And I'm saying like, you don't want to look like you are putting your writing as a priority over your day job, because at the end of the day, the day job is what is keeping a roof over your head so you can write.
Exactly.
So the really fun part is kind of finding that sort of balance, and that's something that I have issues with as well, because like I've had a couple of colleagues basically like asking questions about my book and everything, and at that time, I felt kind of weird, like even kind of giving any sort of details about it. But now, with the books being re-released in May and June, I can say, come over here and you can get a copy there. I will forever be thankful to my previous job for, especially during the time of 2013 when Excelsior was being launched by Rocking Horse Publishing. They were making a point to like not only let the congregation know, since I was working at a church, they let them know about the book and everything, but like I had some members of the congregation coming to the launch party, and it actually wound up being reviewed by the book club that was there. So, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you always have to be mindful of finding that sort of balance and not, basically just saying that you're not giving the impression that you're only using this job to further your career as a writer.
Right. And balance
like
is
professors at colleges.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, that whole thing is different though. They're not professors anymore if they're not publishing something.
Right.
This is true.
part of them.
But it always killed me when I got my book list and I had to buy like 3 of the professor's books.
Yeah, that's the guaranteed hit list there. But before I get to you, Brad, going back to what George was saying, that balancing act is huge. And one of the things which I found myself trapped in, as you heard earlier, is work itself was taking up all my time, and that was it. And I was kind of in a trapped situation, not because of work, but outside of work with life. I had some things going on that I couldn't dare change jobs. That's one of the things I've learned since then is if I've got a job that is not going to allow any personal time, I may want to look into a different job and find something so that way I can keep a balance, not just for my writing, but for, family and friends and everything else.
Your personal health.
My personal health.
Self-care is an important thing.
Yes, because
you can't pour from an empty pitcher.
You can't pour from an empty pitcher, and the idea that you're working so hard that you actually think you might have had a heart attack, literally sitting at your desk, but you can't get away from the desk.
Because of the heart attack you just had?
It was either a heart attack. I'm not sure. I don't know. That was a heart attack or my only one and only anxiety attack that occurred. Because I have learned that some of those symptoms are the same. So,
Pretty much all of the symptoms are the same.
Thank you. Yeah. So, but where I'm going with that is
congestion in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the causes.
No, that's the cause is different.
So you were saying though.
Yeah, I was trying to say, and now I've lost it, is that you've got to maintain a balance. And yes, writers, you guys know how it goes. What are holidays? We're working them usually. We're writing. But if you don't spend some time with your family, you're going to end up divorced. So you got to be able to make time for a significant other and for your kids, or if you have kids, or whatever. Brad, to you, and then Kathleen. Oh, no, not Kathleen. Kathleen's working on her tendonitis.
No. Sorry, you threw me with all the tendonitis there. I was basically just going to say that, you're completely right. Yes, we have to find time to write. But, I think part of the reason why we always say this, why we always tell people this, is to kind of get it out there that this isn't a job that you're going to find success in right away. Maybe you will. Maybe you're writing the next awesome thing that's going to be picked up and turned into a book and a movie and a novel and, everything else under the sun in a huge series, and your money troubles vanish and everything goes away. But the point is that that's the rarity. It can happen, but it's kind of a rare thing that happens, and more than likely you're going to be like George R. R. Martin, who for years sat with absolutely nobody coming to a convention to get a book signed by him, and you could play chess with him and all kinds of fun stuff like that, to now where he can't go anywhere and the lines are going out the door and around the blocks and everything else like that. So it might be where you are a writer for 20 years before you have something that everyone under the sun reads and goes all around the world. It might be the kind of thing where you write only one book. Writing's kind of a weird profession like that, but I think that's why we do these kinds of things, is to kind of put that warning out there, because we all love what we write. We all think it's great. We all think it's the next best thing, when in reality it's probably a stepping stone on what eventually will be your career.
Yeah.
Are we ready to talk a little about Alex Haley? We haven't said
I
that.
think we should, because
I think you should take it away.
I think you should take it away, but we touched a little bit on it. Please
We
do.
want someone that didn't do publicity.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, Alex Haley, I find very fascinating, both because of his wonderful timing and because of the interesting aftermath of Roots.
Yeah.
Of course, his timing was terrific. It came out in the early 70s, which is right after the big Great Society programs and the Civil Rights Acts of the 60s. So his timing was wonderful. And while most people say that it was whitewashed, and certainly I don't disagree with that in a lot of ways, I see where they're saying it. So, go ahead, talk about it.
No, I'm laughing because I can see my dad right now. When he watches Roots, it's like a religious thing. He literally goes and puts on the television and, closes all the blinds and starts lighting incense. It's the most hilarious thing ever.
I want to be there one time when he does that.
I would invite you. If I knew when he was going to do it next, I would invite you because it is a feast for the eyes.
Sure. Are you talking about the second version or the first? Or
the first one. The first, yeah.
Did he watch the second one, or was that apocryphal?
I don't even think he did. I don't think he did, honestly.
I wasn't even aware there was a second version.
It's on Hulu streaming, and I haven't watched it yet.
Very recent. And you have seen it too, I take it. What's your take on it?
Yes. I've seen things, like I've seen people go back and forth about it. I've seen pages after pages forum where people going back and forth on forums about it. And honestly, I don't think that it's something that you can. I think it's one of those things that's very informed by your experience personally as a person of color. And it's not something that I can say for all black people, well, yes, we think this. Slam down the staff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something that I can generalize about because it resonates so differently based on what your experience is, in my opinion.
I find it very fascinating in the fact that it is the first epic which tried to, in any way, give a timeline of the Black experience. Would you agree with that?
I would say so, yes.
Well, the Black experience in America.
In America,
right.
yes.
Well, big starts in Africa, so
Well,
there's some of
yeah.
that too.
But that was just the beginning. That was to root the experience. That was the foundation.
I think it's a little more than that because it has Black guys actually catching Kunta Kinte.
Mm.
And so it shows that was a problem in Africa, I suppose, that the tribes were very much making war against each other and making money out of each other if they could.
Like the way that I've seen it portrayed is something along the lines of, like slavery was a thing amongst tribes, but they did it very differently, and they did it in a much more humane way.
Except when they then sold their brothers, really, to people to go across the ocean
from their own tribes.
Yeah, no.
They wouldn't ever sell someone from their own tribes. They would sell from Indian tribes, and the thing that they thought they were selling these people into was what
not
they did.
right.
It was completely different from what Americans.
They thought that they were selling them into something to a similar system that they had already
their
created.
concept of slavery is vastly different than what the American concept of slavery is.
Just out of curiosity, from a common. Give us a common root. Was it more similar to the biblical, Hebrew tradition of slavery?
That you can earn your way out?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's so much that you would earn your way out, but it's more like, I think, if I remember correctly, that it's more like you would be assimilated into that tribe. You would become like sort of a member. You weren't necessarily really
so it was very much the current Muslim version of slavery.
I'm not as familiar.
Oh, and just so okay. Most Muslims don't currently practice slavery, but in the areas where it was practiced historically, for instance, if you converted to Islam, you were then freed, for example.
I guess you put it kind of that way.
Join us or serve us?
Pretty much.
It's like you were taken from this village or sold from this village, and this is your home. These are the people that you serve. These are now your people, type of thing, and which is very much not the we buy you, you serve us, we brutalize you.
You're our property.
Exactly. It's two very different.
Property we will breed you with people that you don't know.
Yeah, it's two very different mentalities of slavery that
it's an ownership.
Right.
Just as a naive, ignorant white chick coming in trying to make sense, it's sort of the difference between we're buying your loyalty and we're turning you into a property object. Someone from a tribe becomes a slave for another tribe, and their tribal loyalties are now no longer. They belong to this new tribe because they are a slave of the new tribe.
But they're also like the lowest social class of the new tribe too.
Trying to figure it out.
But see, you still have a social class.
True.
You're not an object.
Yeah,
You're not
the American,
Okay.
the imperialist style of slavery was one where they didn't treat other people as if they were human people. They treated them like animals that you kept in a stable in your backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the author currently right now, which
We are
is
not.
probably what
Giant
David is
tangent.
trying to get us to do.
Yes, I am trying to get you back. And,
He did win a Pulitzer Prize for it.
Yes, and on
David won a Pulitzer Prize for trying to get us back.
Yeah, yeah.
finally,
Yeah.
I did it. Yes. Yeah. On
He's
the
actually writing it right now.
on the serious side, on the
Sorry, David.
on the serious side,
Shut up. I'm sorry.
and I really couldn't address the slavery aspect, but I'm kind of wanting to avoid it because it's going down a little bit. But I want to talk about roots, and I want to talk about Alex Haley because he got accused of plagiarism in writing.
I think it's
Roots.
pretty clear that he did.
No, I'm going to say he got accused.
Not just accused. He was gone to trial, and they settled it.
Yeah. Well, they
He
settled it.
paid.
They settled it, but
Actually, there were several lawsuits.
yeah, there were several. Some were dismissed.
I don't know the story.
But what I was going to say is, sadly, despite his success with Roots and his other works, he's still excluded from African American text of writing. The entire plagiarism threat, whether he did do it or not, I'm just going to call it a threat because I don't.
The
accusation.
Was this around the Black Panther thing? Is this another thing the FBI is responsible for?
Probably.
No, that's what I'm aware of because this is African American literature that is being edited by African Americans. We're saying
As far as you
excluding them.
Okay.
So is FBI involved in all that? I have no idea. I'm not touching that, and that's a powder keg that is not for on the mic.
But we are still discussing the work that the powder keg is about.
Yes, we are talking about that. And that is, so before it's been excluded. He had a lot of complications, even though being a successful author, that he had overcome as that successful author, and who it still plagues him even after his death.
I don't know
That's where
about
I'm going with that.
I don't know about the plagiarism thing. Who did he plagiarize?
Yeah.
Well,
And they were
supposedly,
called an African or the African.
yeah, the
Which was
African.
10 years earlier, and his teacher had given him a copy of the book, and he denied having a copy of the book or having read it, which clearly was not the case.
Yeah. He had two lawsuits brought against him. One was Margaret Walker, which was dismissed, and the other one you're talking about that was successful was Harold Corlanders, the African. Genealogists have also disputed Haley's research and conclusions in Roots, but all this leads up to
Well, he claimed to be related to Kunta Kinte, and he may or may not have been related to Kunta Kinte.
I may or may not be related to Robert the Bruce, but you know what?
Really know?
There you go.
After all the mess of slavery, would you really know? The other thing I was going to say is that I'm sure he did get some details wrong, but we just had an episode about the future of the past.
Yeah.
And we talked about how Pluto's no longer a planet. So, I mean, if scientific facts can be disputed and then disproven, I think some historical facts that we know that you can do your best to research about can later be disproven too.
Well,
Definitely disputed.
the Pluto thing is a little bit different because they changed defining
changed
what
the
a planet
definition.
was.
Yeah.
They didn't
But
redefine
it's still there.
genealogy.
So, okay, I'll give a different example then. I saw my first black cowboy in a movie watching the new Magnificent Seven movie. I didn't know that black cowboys were a thing, but apparently it's just part of history that people leave out.
Dude, the Lone Ranger is based off a black cowboy. I love it.
Sam Bass,
yes.
Okay,
As much as you think you know a thing.
I'm going to
Exactly.
address this with history, and then I'm going to actually end this. Because I think this will be a great.
I'm done.
Damn.
We're done here. No.
Back up the
No,
cards.
because I want to share this. Since the door got open, the majority of cowboys during the time period were black, what we nowadays would call African American. You had two waves. You had pre-Civil War, in which a lot of them were either freed and didn't want to get. You've read the book or saw 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah.
Freed black, and then you get recaptured, and you get captured, and now you're in slavery again. Like, no, we're getting away from those slave states, so they went out west.
I don't blame them.
The other aspect was a lot of escaped slaves went out west for the same reason, to get out of there. After the Civil War, things were not good. We know this. Lincoln was assassinated. What he may have been able to do for rectifying or bringing back the country together, that we'll never know what happened. But a lot of the freed slaves.
Brad, you're not on mute.
Brad's not on mute. A lot of the freed slaves. Brad's giving me the sad look. A lot of these freed slaves, to get out of working back on the plantations, which they were just slaves on, they went out west to find new hope and new lives for their families.
Dreams of working while they were
Right.
working.
There were a large number of a large amount of the West was settled because of black cowboys and black explorers, and one of the greatest U.S. Marshals, whose name is just went out the dang door. He was a former slave.
Sam Banks.
Thank you. The guy, he would be a man of a million disguises. He would dress up.
There's a new movie about him, I think.
There's a new movie coming out. Is it out yet?
I don't think so.
I am waiting to see this movie. Ever since I learned about him, he would dress up kind of like a fancy man. But when he went out, he had one of the largest territories where he was looking for criminals, and he would very rarely have to pull his gun. He went kind of in disguise and would be able to get these guys and arrest them and then go to the next town. Oh, now I got to arrest this guy and arrest this guy. And then eventually he'd finish up the circuit and spend some time with his wife and go back out. Yes.
David, is he a hero with 1,000 faces?
No.
Ah!
Nice try.
Thank
you for the Joseph Campbell reference.
I want to get back to roots, and then I want to get back to writing the day jobs.
Okay.
So back to roots. Whatever you're feeling about the show or about Alex Haley, it was a cultural moment. It was
very much so.
created a cultural moment that is hard to understand at this point. Like, it changed a lot of things for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think we should all recognize that.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I totally, absolutely agree with you on that.
And the fact that it could be televised as a miniseries, as an epic of the Black experience, mm-hmm. I think is amazing for anything before that time, when you had a Donna Reed show, and everything was very wide.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It sounds, seeing as I wasn't there at the time, like it gave an air of legitimacy to being a Black American that had previously been missing from television.
Have a history.
Yes.
I totally agree.
But now I wonder if he quit his day job. Like, you have Roots, which has created like a cultural experience and in some ways helped funnel into the movement.
Did we say what his day job was?
Liberation.
Well, after
what
he
did
left,
he do for a living?
He was a
sailor. After he left the Coast Guard, he became editor at Reader's Digest. He did write some screenplays. I don't know if he ever was a full-time only author.
You mean novel writer?
Well, no.
Yeah, but he worked in the entertainment industry. I mean, in the 80s, he worked for Walt Disney. He was a writer or working in the entertainment / industry his whole life. Or not his whole life, but his professional life, his writing life.
So basically, what I want to point out then is you can write Roots and still need to keep your day job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do for yourself then is figure out how to balance keeping your day job with your life as a writer and an author.
Get a really good day job.
Getting a good day job does help.
Yes, it does.
Because then you can write all you want when you're, I don't know. It seems like the more money you make, the less time you actually have to actually work. So
get a good day job, make a lot of money while you're young, take more time off later.
Yeah. Just keep writing. Don't ever give up. And if you do have to take a break, come back to it. Come back to it. And keep going. And on that note, and unless I'm looking at Kathleen in case she has anything else to add.
Remember your roots.
Oh, stop.
I love it.
That was well done. And on that note, have a great week. Have a great week writing, and tune in next week for yet another interesting topic in the writing industry.
GatewayCon? What is GatewayCon? The Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention, brought to you by St. Louis Writers Guild, is a new, unique experience for writers looking for their work to be either traditionally published, independently published, self-published, or to further their writing career. Coming in June 2017, GatewayCon will provide opportunities for writers to pitch their work to agents, hone their craft regardless if it is genre fiction or nonfiction, and obtain expert critiques. Get to meet vendors and experts who can help your writing get attention. And all writers get their work in front of their audience. Writers will get to network with agents, publishers, and others in your genre. Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention will be in St. Louis, June 16th through the 18th, 2017. For more information, visit www.stlwritersguild.org or look for GatewayCon on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. GatewayCon, opening the gateway for writers to reach their readers. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.